people, it's me, Anya. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video. Today's video focuses on my favorite books of 2020, and I have 20 books to talk about, so let's get this party started. The first book on this list is called All the Days Past, All the Days to Come, written by Mildred Taylor. This book is YA historical fiction, and it's absolutely so good. I really love this book because it's the conclusion to a series that I've been keeping up with for the longest time. This book also can stand by itself, because even though I really enjoyed all the cameos and references and all that kind of stuff from the previous books, this book is so good. I love the topics discussed in this story. It was so well done. I absolutely love it. Cassie is such a wonderful, strong, resilient character, and I love her. She is so inspirational. Mildred Taylor clearly did her research, because this book is so good. It's absolutely so underrated, and it deserves so much more hype than it receives, because it's absolutely so good. I love reading about black families in YA historical fiction, because I feel like that representation is so underrated. You know what I mean? I feel like historical fiction is typically so white, so this series provides more insight and provides representation for black people that we deserve. So basically, this book is so good, and I'm so glad that this series is just so good. So with that, I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called All the Stars and Teeth, written by Adalyn. This book is YA fantasy, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's absolutely so good. This story kept me on my toes every step of the way, because I had no idea what to expect. The plot, the characters, the world building, the setting, every step of the way, this story was so fantastic. I am so excited for the sequel. It comes out next month. It was on my list of my most anticipated 2021 releases, because All the Stars and Teeth was absolutely so good. I did mention in my most anticipated 2021 releases that I don't really remember what happened in All the Stars and Teeth, because I read All the Stars and Teeth at the very beginning of last year, so it's been a minute since I've read it. But what I do remember is that this story is absolutely so good. It is so fantastic. Like I said, every single element of this story knocked the wind out of my socks. Knocked my socks off. That's what I mean. This story is so good. And I absolutely highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Time of Our Lives. This book is YA contemporary, and I absolutely loved it. This story is so well done. I had really low expectations for this book, because their previous book I gave 4 stars, so I wasn't expecting this book to be rated 5 stars. This book is so well done. I love the dual perspectives. I love the two characters. I love their romance. I love the plot. I love the setting. I love everything about this book, and it was absolutely so good. It was absolutely so good, because I loved every single element about it, and it's absolutely so kind of underrated, honestly. I mean, it's not that underrated, but it's a little bit underrated, because I feel like this author duo is more known for the previous books. But maybe that's just because Time of Our Lives is a 2020 new release. Anyway, basically, this book was so good. I am so excited for what these authors have to write next, because I know that they have a new 2021 release. I think it's coming out in May or something. I think it's called What's Not to Love or something like that. Basically, I am so excited for the next book, because this book was so well done. It was so eloquent. So, yeah. The next book on this list is called Starless Sea, written by Erin Morgenstern. For those who don't know, Erin Morgenstern also wrote The Night Circus, and I absolutely really loved The Night Circus. So I definitely was not expecting the Starless Sea to not only be as good as The Night Circus, but be better than The Night Circus. This book is so good. I love the world building. I love the setting. I love the plot. I love the characters. There's even a gay romance. We love to see it. This book is so well done. I absolutely loved it. I will love every single book that Erin Morgenstern will write, apparently, because this book was so good. I absolutely fell in love with it. This book deserves all the hype that it receives and so much more, because it's absolutely so amazing. I absolutely loved it. I love every single element of the story. I will gladly reread it. This is one of those books that I have found so much comfort in and so much escapism, because it's absolutely so good. Erin Morgenstern writes like no other. You know what I mean? Like, whole world building is absolutely so amazing. Whole world building and whole setting is like absolutely unparalleled. You know what I mean? So with that, the Starless Sea is absolutely so good. The next book on this list is called They Went Left, written by Monica Hesse. This book is YA historical fiction, and I absolutely loved it. For those who don't know, historical fiction is one of my favorite genres because I just love learning about different time periods, and this book definitely did that. It gave me insight into a time period that I hadn't really learned that much about because it's set right after the concentration camps, and I feel like I've read many books that are set during the concentration camps, and I do think that those stories are very important. But I also think that it's equally important to talk about what happens afterward. You know what I mean? So basically, this story was so well done. It gave me insight. I learned something from it, but also it was a good, solid, sad story as well. The story was so well done. It was absolutely so amazing. Monica Hesse is such a talented author. This book was definitely better than The Girl in the Blue Coat, which I was not expecting at all, because that book was also really good. But yeah, this book was so well done, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. The next book on this list is called Summer of Salt, written by Katrina Leno. This book is YA contemporary, and it also has some fabulistic elements in it. And also there's a trigger warning for sexual assault, so please be aware of that before going into this book. This book is absolutely so good. It definitely deserves all the hype that it receives, and I was not expecting this book to live up to its hype, but it absolutely did because it's so good. The world building, the setting, the characters, the plot, the sapphic romance, every single element of the story was absolutely so good. This book is so elegant and eloquent, and I absolutely fell in love with it because this book is so good. I loved the sister relationship in it. I loved the sapphic romance, like I said before. I love the characters. I love the plot. I love the setting. This book is so well done and definitely deserves all the hype that it receives because it's absolutely so good. It is so lovely and wonderful and magical and absolutely so amazing. And I highly recommend it because it's absolutely so good. The next book on this list is called Sick Kids in Love. This book is YA contemporary, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. I mentioned this book in my disabled booktuber tag because this book has some great representation in it. The main character has a chronic illness, and so does her love interest. This book is so well done. It definitely deserves all the hype that it receives and so much more because this book is so underrated, and for what it's so good. Even aside from the representation, the story itself was so good. You know what I mean? Like, the main character has such a wonderful amount of strength and resilience, and I love her. The romance in this book was so fluffy and it was so well done. I really enjoyed this book, and I think that it's absolutely so good, and it's so underrated, and for what it's so good. I apologize if this review is kind of repetitive and redundant. I don't know why I just said repetitive and redundant. That's redundant in itself since those two words are synonyms. Anyway, this book is so good. I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is also a YA contemporary with some great representation, but also a nice solid story as well. And it is I'll Be the One, written by Lyla Lee. This book is so well done. The great representation in it is featured with the main character, who is plus size, Asian, and bisexual. I love her, and I love this story. The romance was so fluffy. It was so well done. The setting, the plot, the characters, everything about the story is so absolutely so good. It is so lovely and wonderful to see this type of representation in YA contemporary because intersectional representation is so rare to find. You know what I mean? Like, most of the plus size representation that I read about is white. You know, most of the bisexual representation I read about is white. You know, like, most of the Asians that I read about all straight or thin. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see somebody who checks off multiple boxes. Not that diversity is like a list of boxes to check off. You know what I mean? But basically, this story was so well done. It was so good. It was so lovely, and it was so fluffy, and it was so wonderful. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Sequel of the Wild Realm, written by Alexandra. This book is middle-grade fantasy, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the setting, the world building, the characters, the plot. This book also contains dragons. We love to see it. There are multiple reasons as to why the sequel to this book is on my most anticipated 2021 releases, and it's because this book is so good. I absolutely really enjoyed it, and I'm so excited to read more from this author because I think that she is so underrated in the middle grade fantasy genre. I mean, audience. Anyway, this book is so well done, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. We love to see a strong female main character at the core of it. We love to see dragons. I feel like dragon fantasies are so underwritten, yet everybody loves them. So if you're looking for a nice, solid, middle-grade dragon fantasy, I would highly recommend this book because it's so well done. And like I said, I'm highly looking forward to the sequel because I'm sure it's going to be absolutely amazing, just like this one was. The next book on this list is called Late to the Party, written by Quindlen. I think that's how you say her name. Anyway, this book is YA contemporary, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. This book is so well done. It definitely deserves all the hype that it receives, and I'm so excited for Kelly's next book, even though I've forgotten what it's called and its release date and everything about it, although I can picture the cover in my head. Anyway, I think it's called She Drives Me Crazy, actually. Anyway, Late to Party is so good. It's absolutely so good. I love the characters. I love the sapphic romance. I love the plot. I love the setting. This book is definitely one of my favorite YA contemporaries, period. Not just of 2020. This book is so well done and so comforting and fluffy, and it just felt so good to be reading it, you know what I mean? And also the topics discussed in it is also relatable for me, as a person that's always felt late to the party, if you know what I mean. This book is so well done and so necessary and timely, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. So yeah. The next book on this list is called The Year We Fell from Space, written by A.S. King. This book is middle grade contemporary, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this story because Liberty, the main character, is such a relatable, resilient main character, and hearing her voice come through was so awesome and amazing and inspirational. Like, this book is so good, and it's so underrated, and for what? I feel like that's going to be a recurring theme in this video. But this book is so good. I absolutely really enjoyed it because I love the story. I love her as a main character, and I love every single element of the story. I will gradually reread it this year because this book is so good. It's so lovely. It's so wonderful. It's so inspirational, like I mentioned before, because the main character is so resilient and strong and somewhat relatable, and I love it. Like, this is the type of book that I would recommend to my younger self. You know what I mean? Because this book is so good. It's so good. The next book on this list is called Are Not Flea, written by Traci Chee. This book was so well done. It's also YA historical fiction, the same way that They Went Left was. And similarly to They Went Left, this book provided so much insight and so much education. I love learning about different time periods, like I mentioned earlier, and this book was so well done. But even aside from the insight and education that it provided me, it also was just a good, solid story. Traci Chee is such a genius, and I love her. Her books are unmatched, unparalleled. This book is so good. It's possibly one of my favorite YA historical fiction books, not just of 2020, but of all time, period. Because this book was so well done. It was absolutely so good. I wasn't expecting it to be absolutely amazing, not because I didn't have high expectations or anything, because I definitely did, because Traci Chee is one of my favorite authors. It's just that this book is set during World War II, and I've read so many books like set in this time period, so I was not expecting this book to absolutely knock it out of the water. This book was so well done, and I absolutely really loved it. So I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Majesty, written by Katharine McGee. For those who don't know, this is a sequel to American Royals, and this series is a YA contemporary alternate history series, and it was so good. I definitely was not expecting this book to just knock it out of the park, because it was absolutely so good. I wasn't expecting it to like exceed my expectations because I rated American Royals 4 stars, so I wasn't expecting to rate this book 5 stars. I knew that it would be just as good as American Royals, but I was not expecting it to be better than American Royals. It was so good. I found myself caring for these characters way more than I did in the first book. This book was so good. It was way more emotionally touching than the first book, and I think that's why I found myself caring more for the characters than I did in the first book. This book was so well done. I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the character development, especially within relationships with each other, if you know what I mean. If you've read the book, then you know what I mean. Basically, this book was so well done, and I'm so excited for the third book in the series. I'm assuming there was a third book because the way that this book ended didn't close all of the doors that she had previously opened. You know what I mean? So I'm expecting a sequel, and I have such high expectations for it because this book was so good. So yeah. The next book on this list is called Punching the Air. This book is YA contemporary, and it's absolutely so good because it's so timely and important and necessary because it brings to life a topic that I think is often glossed over. You know what I mean? And this is a topic that I've been aware of my entire life because as a young black woman, I know that there's a potential that this could happen to me. And this is a topic that more people should talk about because it's still happening in modern day right now as we speak. And it's something that should be in the past, but it isn't. You know what I mean? So basically, this book is so good because it's so timely and necessary and important, but it's also just so lovely and wonderful. You can tell that these authors are speaking from possibly their own experience because they clearly did their research. This book is so well done. It's so good. So please read it. The next book on this list is called Anna on the Edge. This book is middle grade contemporary, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. You can tell that this story is own voices because the representation in this story was so well executed. It was so well done, and it was so absolutely amazing. Anna is such a wonderful, amazing, resilient character, and they are so lovely. I love them. I wanted to reach through the pages of this book and just give them a hug. You know what I mean? Because they deserve the world. This author is so talented. They are so wonderful. Honestly, if I hadn't known that this book was a debut book, I wouldn't have guessed that. You know what I mean? Because this story does not read as a debut book. I don't know why. But basically, the story is so well done. Like Cemetery Boys, who? You know what I mean? If you really enjoyed Cemetery Boys, I would definitely recommend this story because it's so well done. This book is possibly one of my favorite queer middle grade books. So yeah, this book is so good. So I know I just said that Anna on the Edge is one of my favorite queer middle grade books, but this next book also makes that list, and it is Under Shifting Stars. This book was so well done. Like I said, it's middle grade contemporary, and it's absolutely so good. I loved the representation in this book. There's autistic representation, there's trans representation, because one of the main characters is autistic and the other one is gender fluid. This book was so well done, and it's so underrated. And for what? Because it's absolutely so good. I loved the sibling relationship between the two main characters. I loved each of them as a whole. I feel like they both did a good job driving the story forward, you know what I mean? Like there was never a point in the story where I preferred one character over the other or one perspective over the other, you know what I mean? This book was so well done. It's absolutely so eloquent and so elegant and so wonderful and so lovely and so underrated, and for what? This story is so good. It's so good. The next book on this list is called We Are Wolves. This book is YA historical fiction, and like the previous historical fiction books on this list, this book provided so much insight and education, but it was also such a wonderful story as well. This book is set during a time period that I had no previous knowledge of beforehand, so that was nice to see, a nice, like, refreshing new time period to learn about, you know what I mean? But it was also just a story of strength and resilience, and it was so good. I would definitely recommend this book to fans of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas or The Book Thief or something like that. This book is so well done. I absolutely loved it so much. You can tell that this author did her research because this book was so good. It was so good, and I would gladly reread it even though it was sad, and maybe that's why I rated it 5 stars, because it made me cry. It was so good. It was so emotionally touching. It was so well done. So with that, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Holopops, written by Jessica Townsend. For those who don't know, this is the 3rd book in the Morgan Crow series, and this series is a middle-grade fantasy, and it was absolutely so good. This book was probably one of my most anticipated books for 2020 because I really enjoyed the first 2 books in this series, and this book popped off. It was so good. It definitely exceeded my high expectations for it, which I definitely was not expecting. I did have high expectations for it, so I knew that this book would meet those high expectations, you know what I mean? But I was not expecting this book to exceed those high expectations. This book is so good. I love the world building, I love the setting, I love the characters, I love the plot, I love the direction that Jessica is heading with this series, you know what I mean? I am so excited for the sequels. I don't know how many sequels she has planned exactly, but I'm so excited. Morgan Crow is such a wonderful character. I love her to pieces, so I'm so excited to see what will happen next. The penultimate book on this list is called The Silence Between Us. This book is YA contemporary, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. I mentioned in my 2020 reading wrap-up that there are 2 books on this list with disabled rep in them. This is the second one. The first one was Sick Kids in Love, which I mentioned earlier. This book was so well done. You can tell that the disabled rep in it is own voices because this book was so well done, and it was so relatable. As a fellow disabled person, even though me and the main character have different disabilities, I definitely can relate to the frustrations of the ableist people around her, you know what I mean? This book was so well done. It's absolutely so good, and it's so underrated, and for what? It is so good. Disabled people have such a lack of representation in YA, and it's so annoying and it's so frustrating. So I love that books like these exist, you know what I mean? This book was so well done, and I absolutely loved it. The last and certainly not least book on this list is Loveless, written by Alice Oseman. This book was one of my most anticipated books of 2020, and it was absolutely so good. The representation in this book may be Alice's best representation of all time in any of her books. Alice Oseman is such a wonderful, talented author, and this book was no exception. Loveless is so good. The Alo Ace representation in this book was so well done, and you can tell that Alice is speaking from her own experiences because this book was so good. I love the characters, I love the plot, I love the representation, I love the setting. Having a story about a young woman figuring out her sexuality as a young adult is so timely and necessary and so important. You know what I mean? This book is so well done, and it definitely deserves all the hype that it receives and so much more because it's absolutely so amazing. So, in conclusion, these were my favorite books of 2020. In case you were wondering, this list was in chronological order, and I did not explain the synopsis of any of these books individually because I did not want this video to be longer than it already is. And in case you were wondering of the synopses of any of these books, you can look it up on Goodreads or something like that. So, anyway, basically, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below if you have any favorite books in common. Comment down below why you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!